Hi. Today we will talk about the bee biology, the most important step for understanding about the details about beekeeping. And we will show you inside the hives the bee life cycle, the nest thermal regulation, and other details that the beekeepers know about the bees for understanding what's happening inside the nest and have a success in the beekeeping. For understanding what happens inside a bee nest, it's necessary to understand about the bee. And we will talk about the bee morphology for you understanding what's happened inside a hive. The bee body is divided in three different parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. In the head, we have the sense organs as smell and sight. On the bee thorax, we have the locomotion organs, the wings and legs. The wings, we have two pairs, a large pair that is a posterior wing and a small pair of wings that is anterior. And the legs, we have three different pairs, in front, middle, and posterior. And the last pair of legs of the bees, we have the hairs that is located, the pollen basket that the bee is transporting the pollen grains to the hive. We have here a hive with a swarm inside, and we will show you the life cycle of the bees, the three elements that compound inside a hive: the drone, the worker, and the queen, and all details that we need to show for starting to create bees. The first thing to open a hive, we have sure the day that we will handling the bees. We need a good day without strong winds. The temperature will be warm, and it's very important detail. You need to check if the bees are flying. If there is movement, you can open the hive safety, because the most aggressive bees that we have inside the hives are the older bees, the older workers. And the older workers are the bees that go outside the hive for collecting food, nectar, pollen, and water as well. If we don't have any movement of flying of the bees, when we will start to handling the hives, we will have problems, because almost of the older bees will be inside the hive, and you will receive stings, of course. For open a hive, we need first to use smoke. Why? we need to use smoke, because anytime that I put smoke in the entrance of the hives, the bees thinking that the smoke from the smoker is fire, and they go directly to this honey storage, eat the honey, and stay ready to fly outside. That's why we need to use smoke before starting to open the cover of the hive. Another reason is all things inside the hive is controlled by smells, which name is pheromones. Pheromones are present inside the hives. If we put smoke inside, in the entrance, the bees will be confused. Besides to choose the correct day to come to the field for handling the hives, we need to be sure that we used the correct clothes for handling the hives. If you will handling only one hive and not a big hive, a strong hive, you can use only a mask, helping with the smoke. But if you need to handling a lot of hives in apiaries for honey production, we will need to use safety clothes. Please. As the same clothes that these beekeepers are using, a jacket, a half suit with mask and gloves, and a complete clothes, complete suit with pants, with jacket, with mask, and with gloves. These are the correct clothes for you use it for handling the bees, depending, of course, of your experience in the field. For proving that the bees ate honey because the smoke was put inside, check the mouth of the bee. Can you check the drop of honey? Here is a hive, a swarm, a colony of bees. We have inside broods, we have inside honey, we have inside bee bread, and 3 different elements. The majority of population inside is composed by worker bees. We have drones, the males of the bees, and we have only one queen inside a swarm. And for maintain and create broods, the bees need a temperature at the minimum from 30 degrees until 34 degrees. If they don't have an AC machine inside a hive, how they control this temperature for create brood? If the temperature outside is lower than inside, or if the temperature outside the hive is higher than inside. They have a very special and singular mechanism to control the temperature inside the hive. If outside the temperature is lower than inside, the bees stay closed each other in the shape of a circle and eat honey. They can irradiate heat by their bodies and increase the temperature inside. If the temperature outside is highest than inside, the bees spread inside the hive, bring and collect and bring water, spread on the combs, and create a ventilation with their wings inside for renewal the air. Then we have inside a hive as this shape, this standard, that is a Langstroth standard. We have the brood on the center of the hive, and on the sides that the temperature is lower, they produce honey. Check. This is the extremity of the hive. We will find generally honey. This is honey. For this opposite side is the same thing. Generally, the both two frames of each side we will have honey, and the brood we will be. And happens in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames in the center of the hive. Smoke. This is the brood, sail brood. But the configuration of one comb of bee is always the same. On the top of the frame, we have honey and bee bread. And down of the comb, we will find the brood. And here, we will have cells, the smaller cells are for creating worker bees that are smallest and storage honey. And we have big cells, as you are seeing now in this side, the bigger one, for create the males, the drones. that happens only when we have the abundance of food around the hives. Inside the hive, we have the honey. When the bees bring the nectar from the field, they change this nectar between different bees inside the hive. This name of this action is trophallaxis. Trophallaxis is when one bee came from the flower, this specific bee don't storage the nectar inside the cells. She transfer this nectar for another bee, that it transfer to another bee, for which purpose? For add more enzymes. There is an enzyme which name is invertase. Invertase is an enzyme to broken the saccharoses from the nectar and change to fructose and glucose, the main sugars from the honey. And the bees continue inside of the cells, removing this honey from the cell and put again for add more enzymes. And with the temperature and the ventilation that they produce inside, they remove the moisture, the humidity of the nectar for changing for honey. And when the humidity, the moisture of the nectar has the biggest level of 20%, 200 grams of water by 1 kg of honey, the bees is starting to close the cells with wax, as you can see here. This is ripe honey. This is honey that was transformed from the nectar with highest content of water and now has a lower content of water. This is the honey that are ripe for harvest. On down of the frame we have honey, but not closed. This honey is not ready to be harvested. In another hive, we will show you the queen cells from a queen bee. The queen bee is the unique element inside the hive that is a female, but a mated female. She has all organs for reproduction inside her body, and she has conditions to lay eggs, to create another queen bees, another worker bees, including the drones, the males. We have here a queen cells of a queen bee on the border and on the comb, in the center of the comb. And inside we have a larva that the bees create as a queen. They change the food of the future worker and increase the size of the cell. One cell of a queen bee has around 20 times more size than a cell from the worker bees. Besides this size of the cell, the most important thing is that a queen bee that will born in this specific cell will receive it for all life, including the life cycle of larvae, only royal jelly. This is the big difference. The worker bees are females as well, but they receive royal jelly only once during the life cycle. And the queen bees receive royal jelly all time. That's why the queen bees has the big size and the developed reproduction organs inside her body. One hive of this size with the 10 frames covered with the worker bees, we have a population of workers around 25,000 bees and around from 100 and 500 drones, the males, and only one queen. We will show you the life cycle of a worker bee since the egg until borning. If the queen lays a fertilized egg in normal cells suitable for worker bees, the egg will hatch in 3 days, transforming into a larva, which will receive larval food for 6 days. Afterward, the cell will be closed with a thin film of wax, and the future bee will remain in the cell and turn into adult bee in 12 days, when it will gnaw the wax layer and born. During the flower season, a bee's lifespan is short, about 30 to 40 days after birth. Males or drones occur only in periods with abundant flowers, in cells larger than worker bee cells, and originate from unfertilized eggs. Drones have a cycle before the birth of 3 days as an egg, 6.5 days as a larva, and 14.5 days as a pup, remaining in a closed cell with a thin layer of wax. After 24 days, new adult males gnaw the wax film of the cell and are born. After birth, new males generally live for about 80 days during the flower period. After laying a fertilized egg in a larger cell called a queen cell, the future queen has 3 days cycle as an egg. After hatching and turning into a larva, a period that remains for 5.5 days, and after the cell
is closed with a thin layer of wax called operculum, where the future queen will remain for 7.5 days in the form of the pupa. Finally, she will be born after completing 16 full days of the cycle. A queen after birth can live for up to 5 years, but only 2 years as a good egg producer, as responsible for perpetuation of the swarm.
In this episode, we talk about the bee biology. For the next episode, we will show how to prepare all egg structure to starting to handling the hives. Bye!